they are. Good. We're recording. So there are six of them: disciple making culture, mission outreach, equipping leaders, organizational effectiveness, fiscal resources and responsibility, and strategic communications. So of those the first three really pertain to the work of the regional mission and ministry councils. And so that's what we're going to focus on in terms of setting tonight priorities for the financial assistance and we won't talk about dollars so much as just mission priorities. So focusing on what is the mission of the church that we have been called together to be involved in. And this is through the lens of those three particular strategic developments that we have presented. So if you have further questions on that particular end, we have David Friesen available to us tonight to fill out any of the questions that you might have on that. So our initiative is called Together, One Vision and Plan. And it's again describes the desired future the members of our synod seek. It is a foundation upon which the Together One goals and initiatives are built. And so at its heart, this vision focuses on sustaining, identifying, developing, expanding our mission and ministries in Canada. By strengthening our congregations, equipping our leaders, we will better serve the needs of our mission field, which today is right in our own backyard. Again, those are kind of the foundational things that we are using tonight to look at, first of all, the congregational applications for mission funding, for congregational funding. So I just want to again remind you of the three goals in a little more detail. First of all, the disciple-making culture. The key priority here is to strengthen our congregations to bear witness to our faith in a world seemingly opposed to the gospel. And so we want to be able to look at our mission opportunities from a Western perspective through that lens of disciple-making culture. And then secondly, we want to one of the key priorities in this area is to support small, isolated congregations and communities where there's no confessional Lutheran options. So there are a number of different aspects that we'll look at. But just to give you a higher overview, the second goal is equipping leaders. And the key priority here is to recruit next generation of pastors, church workers in collaboration with our seminaries. So to create pathways into the church for workers, both in the pastoral and diaconate ministry. And to think about how we as an RMMC, as we think about our strategic plans and initiatives, how do they fit in and focus with that the need for support? And so that is the next initiative. And the third initiative is a mission outreach. And again, this is more specifically related to the work of the RMMC. Key priority is to answer the call to serve our Indigenous brothers and sisters with increased word and sacrament ministry, to expand language and immigrant ministries across Canada, and to develop mission outreach opportunities in our largest urban centers and increase outreach ministries to families, young adults, and youth. I notice that Samantha is here. our deaconess, who has just taken up that position of youth and family ministries. So welcome, Samantha, to that. So as we think about the applicants in what we are looking at in terms of prioritization, we're going to use a matrix first of all, and it's an introductory thing. Um, that we've developed. Actually, it was through Dwayne's work to create a matrix again for us to kind of focus our attention on our conversations in terms of how we are going to prioritize the ministries that are kind of under our Western region. And so we have the applications from congregations, but we also have talked about in our last meeting RMMC initiatives. Remind you of one of them in particular that we were working on was Ambassadors of Reconciliation. And so Sonia was working on a proposal um, to engage member congregations from across Canada in the Ambassadors of Reconciliation program, and that was part of what we talked about and at our last meeting. And another initiative that we talked about from our West regional meeting in terms of priority was supporting pastors, supporting workers, wellness care. And so we have an overture that we're looking at in terms of responding to the need for caring for our workers. That's part of the work that we did began, and Michelle has taken a lead in terms of putting together overture for us to take a look at. And then the third item that we had looked at in our last meeting was to encourage every circuit to have a convocation to engage in, again, topics that would strengthen congregations in their ministries, whether it's a teaching or training convocation or an informing convocation. As a result of that, Pastor Coltman and the Vancouver Island Circuit have a convocation coming up November 22nd, in which they've invited Pastor Quast to talk to them about domestic missions. And so those are some of the other things that we need to think about in as we take a look at the work of our RMMC, and then bring that forward into the national conversation. So what we decide here in terms of priority and programs that we want to put forward, we will bring to the national conversation in October to set overall priorities for planning of missions and support of congregations and the like. And that will work into then the 4-year work program. So ultimately, the end goal of that is also to contribute to the conversation about the 4-year program. So that's just kind of the higher level view of where we are going. A reminder that eventually this will work into the quadrennial work program development. That will be the next stage. We're not tasked at this point to determine dollar amounts. And you'll remember in the last meetings, we spent a lot of time thinking about dollar appropriations for each of the various applications. We're not doing that work at this particular point. We're simply setting priorities for ministries, and we're looking beyond the 1 year. So this is really a conversation about the 4-year work program. What are we wanting to do, and how are we wanting to support our congregations and the work within our RMMC over the next 4 years, and prioritizing that. The dollar amounts we will take a look at in the early part of 2026, probably January of 2026. So that's just an overview of kind of where we are, how we're going to focus our task tonight, where we are going in the future beyond tonight. And I would just open it up to first of all, David Friesen in terms of again the strategic planning, the PPP planning process, and how it now is integrating into the RMMC, the work of the RMMC.
Thanks, Pastor Mons. I would say, first of all, if you have any questions, please ask them at this point regarding that. But maybe just a quick overview in case you've forgotten how we got to this point. We started the PPP process because when we originally looked at running a campaign to support mission and ministry, there were a few issues that came up in the very early stages, and it was a recommendation that we go through a strategic planning process. Now, the end result of that, which involved a lot of people, some of you were actually involved in that, we had a tremendous amount of feedback, which enabled us to focus on some key areas. And if you have your annual report there, and as Pastor Mons talked about, there were 6 goals that came out of that. And these were 6 areas within the church that our people thought we really needed to focus time and attention on. Keep in mind, none of those areas had anything to do with our theological approach, our doctrine and theology. They were all related to how we operated within the church, what we did as missions. Sorry, Dwayne's sending me some messages here. I think he was in and he's out.
I'm back in now.
Oh, you're back. Oh, there you are. Okay.
I don't know what happened. Sorry.
And so to be very clear, this was not about changing who we are as a church in terms of what we believe and what we follow. It was really focused on specifically on areas of outreach, areas of organizational structure, areas of financial transparency. Many things came out of the interview process, especially as we went to strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. Anyway, the end, again, the result of that, which I talked about along with Ellen Zacharias at the 2022 convention, now 3 years ago, was a framework for how we would address these issues, these particular goals. Tyler, you were actually at the April meeting that we had in Winnipeg, I believe, right? Yeah, you were. Other people were as well, I think. But anyway, so in post convention, then we worked really hard at developing strategic initiatives specifically for that quadrennial period, which now we're in our last year of, well, last 3 months actually, because our new quadrennial period actually starts February of 2026. And so many of those, if you've gone onto our website, you can see the progress that has been made with those initiatives. Once we had that in place, then we moved back to, okay, what were the real significant areas relative to mission and ministry, specifically in Canada? And of course, that's what you're most focused on is the work that we do here in our country, domestically. And then, so from that, we took 3 of those goals, which were very outward focused, disciple-making culture, equipping leaders, and mission outreach. And by the way, that's a slightly different order than the way we presented it initially. And again, that's a result of the input that we had from our people as we went out and actually tested the case statement for support. So those three goals form the bulk of what we're going to be doing in Canada. Now that doesn't remove the focus on some of the other areas, but relative to a campaign, people aren't going to give you funds to be, effective, organizationally effective. I mean, they just assume you're going to be that. But of course, in terms of supporting congregations, in terms of advancing our mission and ministry, and in terms of equipping leaders, those were the three most significant areas that people said they would support. So we have worked with the PMC. Pastor Mons has been an integral part of that in developing out a number of initiatives under those three goals, which are included in this document. And also, of course, you can't just have goals and you can't just have a couple of things that you want to accomplish. People actually want to see that you've got a plan to do something. So again, you don't have all of that detail, which would probably make this meeting about 3 days long. But you have at least the key priorities and the initiatives, and those are the things that the PMC and others, Pastor Quast, myself, Dwayne, we've been really working on filling in those details. So what you have before you now is a not just a framework, but a path forward. These are all of the areas based on all the feedback. These are the things that we truly believe are going to make a difference within the work that we do. And now, of course, your task, along with the other RMMCs, is to begin looking at these things and prioritizing them against also some of the requests that you already have in front of you from congregations. So any questions on that? You're muted, Pastor Mons.
Of course. Thank you, David, for that. And again, if you have further questions of clarification, talking directly with David on that would be helpful. He's really one of the drivers of this and is intimately involved in so many different aspects of it. He can provide you with quick answers quicker than probably I could or anybody else. So given that, we will get into that more so, I think, when we get into what are our RMMC priority as we view them through that lens. But I want to move then to probably the thing that's most familiar to us, and those are the congregational applications that we have. And I want to bring in Dwayne Cleaves because we've had a lot of questions about the matrix, and Dwayne has been intimately involved in developing this, and I think we are the first RMMC that's really viewing this matrix, and this is a proposal. This is gathering information to see how helpful something like this would be in decision-making process for analyzing our priorities for congregational missions. So Dwayne, if you want to give us an overview, if you want to go to that exhibit, I think it's
2.1.6.
1.6, yeah.
Yeah. If I could just take maybe 2 minutes just to go over my short report on Exhibit 2.11. First of all, David maybe touched on this. I don't know what happened. I got cut off. I'm sorry. But really, this quadrennial work program planning conference is a real opportunity, what we're really wanting to accomplish as a group, which this RMMC with their representatives attending that conference will have a lot of input on, is making sure that our work program, mirrors and dovetails into our strategic plan and captures the key priorities, not just in mission work, but in other areas as well. So one of the reasons, really what has been happening primarily with our every year review of this process. We're doing it on an annual basis. We're hoping that we might be able to build in some of the feedback we've been receiving from RMMCs is can we build a longer plan, like beyond 1 year? So we're just evaluating impact and feedback rather than having to continually review the same applications year in and year out. So that's one of the goals. But again, really, so David has really talked about to this point the strategic plan. So one of the ways we will analyze these applications is from a qualitative analysis. You know, what key priority does it tie into? You know, for it to make this list, it should tie into at least one of those key priorities and initiatives. And how much weight do we put on that? What's the narrative to that? What's the story? Because if this is being compared to something across the country and choices have to be made, you know, how do you evaluate that? So there's the qualitative analysis, and then looking at the quantitative analysis, putting some points on it. And this is a starting point. So really for the purpose of this exercise, you know, we can certainly get feedback. You can say, hey, there's some things that I would maybe change on the measurement to put a number on it. But for the purpose of this exercise, we want you to use the metrics in its current form so it's consistent across all three regions. We're going to say the same thing. When they're evaluating their financial assistance applications, they're going to use the same form. So it'll come back in a uniform manner. And then we can look at it in this larger group, look at some of the feedback we received from the RMMCs and what we might want to change in that table. So now does that make sense? And I guess one of the things I missed, like when I was trying to say with our annual applications, is a lot of the work we were doing domestically basically mirrored what was in place before we restructured. You know, the levels of funding going into each region, the actual mission work we were doing, it was kind of status quo. We've been kind of chipping around the edges in certain areas, trying to level the playing field, so to say, how much money goes into each region. But by and large, in the Western region, it was really never in the culture, for lack of a better word, for there to be too many applications for subsidy. It was just something that was foreign in kind of the Western region. Where in another region, it was a little bit more. So that's why we want to get some uniformity on this and just have this sort of unified thing in this work program where we're looking at the whole big picture of what currently exists, some of the work we see for mission outreach, and ranking that so we can move forward into the next quadrennial period. I hope I didn't veer off too much on that. So looking at Exhibit 2.16, in the West region, we basically had 5 applications received. They're all relatively small. And then we've left in the small mission grants. So this would be kind of the things you would be looking at. So one of the things we're under the first criteria, there's 5 categories I've used: strategic mission alignment, where they're located. The more isolated, the farther they're away from another congregation, the more weight we put on that. Vitality, and how we're kind of measuring vitality is by how many people are attending their worship service. So we put numbers to that. Their viability, what's their local offerings level? The higher the local offerings, the more mature the local stewardship. And then the long-term sustainability based on how much assistance they're requesting. Or the more they're requesting, the lower their points. And then we put a weighting to each one of the tables. So a little bit higher weighting on worship attendance, local offerings, and compared to the other three categories, and it adds up to 100. So these are things you could kind of look at and say, hey, we think there could be a little bit more weighting to this, or they all should be 20%. Maybe you shouldn't use this category to measure going forward. That's feedback we're looking at. But that would be a start. So for example, I don't think too many of them in the first category are not going to be involved direct support of word and sacrament. So probably maybe they'll all be a 4. So that would be the absolute number that would go, say, by Duchess. You don't have to worry about the weighting, but the way that's working is if you were to put a 4 in there and the weighting is 20%, it would be a 0.8. I think everybody understands that, and go across. And then what we're going to do, when we're gathered together in the aggregate, you're going to have representatives from this RMMCs. We're going to have representatives from the other RMMCs in this conference in Winnipeg. We're going to have all the domestic mission on one form, and it's going to go into a small group for discussion. On one group is going to be talking about assistance to congregations, another group is going to be talking about mission outreach. So I think this form works in this context for congregations that are seeking financial assistance. It probably doesn't work for a new mission start. If we use this, we probably wouldn't start anything. So Pastor Quast has already started a form for that. But that doesn't mean in this case you couldn't look at, like we've been thinking about or talking about, for example, urban ministry. And one of the areas is certainly in Vancouver. And does that involve an evangelist or a missionary at large? You could still say, well, look at some of those qualitative, look at the strategic plan and how does this fit into the priorities? Hey, it's named as a priority. What's the narrative to that? And even though we don't have numbers, where would we place that mission outreach in relation to these financial assistance requests? Would it rank higher? Would it be somewhere in the middle? Would it be right at the bottom?
And I think for our particular situation in the West region, where Faith Surrey kind of fits into that other kind of category in some ways, because what they're requesting funding for is not actually the English congregation, or it's for specific narrow ethnic language ministries or missions in Vancouver.
So would you call that general outreach then, or I know that's language ministries. It's one of the key priorities is expansion of language ministries, but
yeah,
that's where your guidance.
I'm almost wondering, like, if this for that particular situation, that might be, rather than, even though it is a congregation that is requesting assistance, it would be considered more of the mission start type thing for assistance in some ways, even though it's been ongoing. Like, I think like the matrix I'm working on for the mission starts would in some ways be more appropriate for what Faith is seeking assistance with than the congregational one that we're looking at right now. Just thinking about that, it seems like it might be more suitable in some ways.
Well, I mean, they did identify 65 people in worship, for example, in the Oromo ministry. So, I mean, that would get a pretty high weighting under worship attendance. Obviously, their local offerings would be low.
Yeah.
Right.
In the details I've seen. Yeah.
Okay. Other comments? Two questions. So there was a question about the bracketed item, absolute and weighted. I think that Dwayne, you answered what that actually meant. Anybody have any further clarification on terminology or on the various focus points here along the top: strategic mission alignment, location, vitality, visibility, sustainability? I guess the one thing, Dwayne, that came to mind on the on the local offering matrix there, it would seem to me that that I think we could do better in terms of categorizing that, because you're pitting a congregation that is they may not have huge dollars coming in, but what they have is sustains the ministry that they're doing, right? And so I'm not sure how you measure that, whether it's offerings per communicant member, maybe a different metric to use on that end of things.
Okay.
Just wondering about clarifying that. Otherwise, you have the larger congregations always in a higher category, but they may not necessarily reflect that.
Okay.
David, you had a question.
If I could just sort of explain my rationale for that
Yeah.
and how they
Mhm.
counter the other categories, kind of balance that. For the local offerings, I was looking at, well, how close is this congregation in some cases to, self-sustaining itself?
Mhm.
If we need 100 grand or $110,000 for a full-time pastor, well, the higher the local offerings, hey, this might be a temporary fix or help. And so we should try to get them to that point. So that's why they get a higher weighting. On the other end, when I look at it another way, and where this can maybe address a smaller congregation in some of those areas, is by the amount of subsidy they're asking for. So in
Yeah.
that case, the less they're asking for, the higher the weighting they get. So maybe this is a congregation in some areas. Hey, I'm looking at some of those applications. There's like 13 people. And
Yeah.
is this a ministry to, we're just ministering to the folks there until the last one passes away? Or
Okay.
is there a turnaround opportunity? So that's kind of how they balance. So, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, you could have $80,000 in offerings, but if you're asking for $120,000 in subsidy, you're going to get penalized um, on the assistance request. So that's how I sort of seen those. That was sort of the rationale behind it.
So those two kind of balance out in terms of those
Weighting.
questions. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they
weight.
do get a high weighting though. Like I do put a pretty high weighting on local offerings and worship attendance. And I mean, you could have, if you have 7 people and, you got $40,000 in offerings, well, that's a pretty good offering per member, but it's still 7 people. Are we going to put $100,000 subsidy or something like that in there? That's all.
Yeah, I was thinking the situations I'm looking at is where congregations are coming together in 2, 3 point parish. The example of Mount Carmel, they have figured out a way of just sustaining themselves, even though their budget is like $40,000, because they're linked to other congregations, and the cost for word and sacrament ministry is spread across a larger community that's not reflected in the quote local offerings. Um, but then their needs are small too. They're not talking about big bucks. So I guess it does kind of balance out in the weighting of that.
Okay.
Okay, other comments, questions?
I really like the idea of us planning on for the 4-year space. One question I have though is what happens if we have new requests within the quadrennial period?
Yeah, like it's still going to be an annual process of review, right? There's always a chance some congregations will come off. They won't no longer need subsidy or a higher priority will come in. Um, and you might have to make an adjustment. So there would be room for adjustment.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, if you're committing to a missionary at large, it's unlikely you're going to make a decision 2 years in that we're pulling the plug sort of thing. But
Okay.
Is there still also a way um, for the whole synod, like not each individual RMMC, but maybe like when we get together and as the larger group to say when you start looking at the numbers, that it might be available, we're projecting to be available, that we say, here's our priorities, but here's some money that we want to have in reserve for, other requests or opportunities that could arise.
Yeah, we're definitely going to try to project what we think our revenue stream will be, obviously from the endowments, congregations, what piece of the pie domestic missions is likely to get. Yeah, and then it's really up to you, Jake, as the domestic mission executive and the RMMCs to decide, how to plot that.
One of
Because
the other,
I think each RMMC, the West has done it. The Central has also done it, where you've left mission grants available, usually smaller mission grants, but you've left some funds aside for that specific purpose. And I know the East region has always desired to do that, but they've never had the leftover funds available to do that. But that might be something for us all to consider in discussion in October, maybe even if there's a percentage or something that we'd like to reserve, and maybe that's something that could be given us feedback by this particular RMMC to that group meeting in October as well, if that's something they'd like to see.
yeah. Some clarity on that small mission grant. So in the past year, we've given grants to youth gatherings and that sort of thing within the region. Is that if do we continue anticipating those sorts of granting opportunities there, even though it falls into youth and young adult ministry, or will that be morphed into a different budget area? Just a
It would,
question on that.
yeah, it would fit into a different budget, and I really appreciate you asking that question because, obviously some of the discussions you're having at the RMMC level they're topical all the way up. Health and wellness for pastors. That would probably be something that would fall under the ecclesiastical services. And, is that something that gets done through worker benefits? But it needs to get discussed, at least at the quadrennial work program. So yeah, even though this is falling sort of outside the domestic mission budget per se, some of the things you've talked about on reconciliation training and everything, we shouldn't be looking at putting that into the domestic mission budget, but we should be getting that feedback back from the RMMCs and saying, when the reps come in, this is something that should be discussed. We want to have that feedback because we do have, as you know, 4 small groups that are going to be meeting on a variety of subjects. One's ecclesiastical services, one is higher education. That includes things like vicarage placement and funding for vicarages and so forth is under that subject matter. Mission outreach, and then the other one is supporting congregations. So it'll fit into one of those boxes. So even though it's not in the budget, you can still say, hey, this is what we think it might cost, and this is why it's needed as part of that qualitative analysis. It just doesn't fit under the domestic box. It might fit somewhere else.
Okay. Good. Thanks for that clarity on that. I had that. Sonia had a question.
Anya, we can't hear you. Sounds like there's something wrong with your sound. You want to type us a note? While she's doing that, are there any other comments or questions? Tyler.
Hey, good evening, guys. Just on that matrix thing, I like the idea of having data kind of determine a result, I guess. But I agree with Pastor Mon's earlier comment about just weighting the income of a church, a larger church, uh, is getting more points, or larger income, sorry, is getting more points. And yeah, so I understand both kind of views of it. So I'm thinking almost there needs to be not as much data, but a little bit more human input into kind of weighting these things. And then the second kind of comment or question is, so if we're not setting the dollars that are going out, or we don't have a budget essentially to make decisions on here as this RMMC, who does make that decision once we've weighted these and send that over?
Mhm. Dwayne,
So,
you could address that.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
I had put that in the process. So one of the things is, one of the reasons I didn't want to start with a min-max, like I said at the beginning, we've kind of just been going along with what's been in place for a long period of time, making minor adjustments. So I don't want to, first of all, that was the reason we didn't provide any dollars, because it was just basically based on the financial assistance request that sort of was the starting point for what the region needed. You know, this is a new opportunity here. This is an opportunity to look at some of the things we would like to do as far as mission outreach and this. So let's look at it with a broader perspective. And it's not like this region won't ultimately decide, yeah, we're going to go in this bigger group. We're going to look at it at the end of the day. You know, domestic missions is going to get a piece of the pie of our overall budget. And we're going to say, you know, based on these priorities that we've kind of all looked at together, this is how much money is needed in the region. This is how much money is needed in this other region. It's still going to come back to the region and say, you know, this is how we kind of looked at the priorities, but if you change your mind based on those, you can still allocate it. We're giving you a number to allocate. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We
that
might say
process,
there's $200,000. Here it is. You're still deciding where it's going.
that process
Okay.
of assigning that happens later on in the process now rather than at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of a January. So there's meeting in October, then there should be a follow-up meeting, if I understand right, Dwayne and David,
Yeah.
at the beginning of the new year in January. That'll talk dollars basically and slot them into the ministries.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
mean the RMMCs will have a lot of, you know, based on their representatives at the meeting, they'll see a lot of that information coming back, and you know, you're going to have another meeting in between. But that's kind of on Exhibit 2.12, everyone, and it kind of
yeah,
answers Tyler's question.
Just
yeah,
one more kind of follow-up to that. And this goes totally against my political views of equalization payments. But um, if somebody is looking for, I'm hoping that somebody's looking at this kind of holistically across all the regions, because um, maybe a region like the West doesn't necessarily, maybe the priorities, you know, if you, let's say we have, I don't know, what is this, 4 or 5 requests here, but maybe those 4 or 5 requests, we weight them and sure enough, we give a priority to, you know, a couple of them or whatever on our list. But in reality, in the bigger list, maybe they're a lower priority. So just the comment there would be, in my opinion, I think it should also be looking, if we're going to be tight on dollars on that, we should look at it, uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
synodically and not just trying to divide it up because we have these um, regions that we imposed on our synod.
Yeah. I'm just saying at this point, we've just gotten some feedback from congregations and what they've told us they need. We got these new mission orders. Like, you know, in the West, you've only had 5 applications, but we have been talking about urban ministry. We have been talking about Indigenous ministry on the island. Maybe that's
Yeah,
on the table.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's why you want to look at that qualitative analysis and say, hey, is there something here that we see really ties into this priority and should be considered?
hmm,
That's why I was saying at the beginning, you can have a lot of feedback. You know, this group can tell the representatives, hey, we think a few of these categories should be reweighted or changed or something like that. But just for that exercise, the reason I want everything back in a uniform package is that we're comparing apples to apples, right? Everybody's used the same measurement, and now we can align them. And then the bigger group will look at it, is this reasonable? Or holy cow, when you look at something on the application, they're kind of getting skewed on your matrix. Something has to change. So this might not be the final matrix. I'm sure it won't be. We'll get closer, but it's a good start, I think.
And
Or at least
If I can just add to that, Dwayne, Tyler, to answer your question about looking at it from a larger perspective, that is in fact what the planning meeting is supposed to do. So each region, of course, is going to prioritize items, and then coming together, the representatives that come should be well versed in why those particular things were prioritized within their region. But they're going to look at it holistically from everybody, across every location across Synod. And just to add, also, looking at the goals on 2.13, 2.14, 2.15. Those goals and subsequent priorities and initiatives, those are things, you probably don't have a lot of detail underneath those. Well, you don't, but I mean, you probably don't, even if we did have detail here, you haven't been involved in developing any of those things. But those are also, in a sense, on the table, because it's not so. Through the input and feedback that we had from just a variety of sources, pastors, lay people from across the Synod, these are the things that came out of all of that, and then putting those initiatives together. So, looking at those relative to the financial requests that are already on the table, how would we also prioritize those things? So when you look at, under equipping leaders, for example, I mean, you guys already are doing the Ambassadors of Reconciliation program. It's an important program. It certainly helps leaders within congregations to deal with things. If there was money allocated to that, and that may not be under domestic missions directly. I mean, that could come from other sources as well, ecclesiastical services and things like that. But how would that rank in some ways against some of the other items that are on the list? So looking at it from that perspective as well. Now, the matrix in front of you is specifically for the requests that have come in, but think about those, from that perspective as well.
So one of the other questions I have then is, with those other discussions about priorities for example, the support of congregations, AOR, whatever we come up with, obviously we've not had enough time to put that piece together that can contribute to into the program. We have our last meeting in the spring actually did spend a lot of time on this area, but not being aware of how that would actually dovetail into the quadrennial work program. And so I think there's a concern here about timing and being able for us to be able to actually contribute into those other areas of of prioritization for various things. What level of detail are we looking at that we want from the RMMC in terms of those prioritizations, and what do we need to accomplish tonight to feed into that? My feeling is we don't have enough time or background to really give any direction in those areas. We can deal with the congregational things, but and we have some ideas from our subgroups in terms of initiatives. but we'll have to talk with the members of the RMMC to see whether we're prepared at this point to put some of that detail together to prioritize those other areas of ministry. Yeah, comments or feedback on that?
Yeah, I mean I think that's well stated, Pastor Mons. This is, of course, this is new for everybody across Synod in the RMMCs dealing with this. We're trying to have it so that, you know, as we look at, it isn't a question so much about if we do these things. It's more a question of timing. When might we do these things relative to so let's take next year, for example. And I think in this meeting, you really are focused primarily on the requests that came in, but understanding that these other things are out there. And Pastor Quast can talk a little bit to, you know, some of the areas that since he's on the call that he worked on, especially, you know, those under mission outreach. But with I know without a lot of detail, the problem, you know, getting a lot of detail at this point in time, we could be here for 3 days discussing the ins and outs of all kinds of things. But primarily for your information, that we have these priorities and some of the initiatives underneath there. There may be more developed over time too, of course, but just so you know that they're also in play, so to speak. We don't have an unlimited budget. We're not that far down. Oh, even then, it's not unlimited. We're not that far down the campaign yet, where we have, you know, lots of opportunities to utilize the money that's there. But thinking about when we look out into the future, so when we think about, especially under mission outreach, when we think about some of those items, and of course out in West Region, certainly Indigenous outreach is pretty significant. So is some of the language ministries and expansion, urban ministries in the Lower Mainland, and perhaps other areas as well. But at least so that you know that they're there, and we are looking at that.
Okay, so that's not a task right now, but we will be inputting. We will have the opportunity to input into those from a regional perspective into the national conversation then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that helps to define the work for us tonight, and I'm going to just turn it back to our chair, Pastor Coltman, and have him help us guide us through the matrix. So let's try it. I mean, we have our advisors here to help us through the process, but let's see how we deal with the applications. We have 5 of them to go through tonight. Let's see how we can do that. And I've thought that Fraser could help to facilitate this and give it a try. And we have our advisors when we go through this, so that we're not going to get stuck up on things unnecessarily. So I'm going to turn it back to Fraser.
Okay, thank you. And Sonia, you've left us a question up there, which is in the chat. We won't deal with it now, but it's there. And since we're recording it, we can take it up in time. So back then to Exhibit 2.16, the matrix that we have here, and then you're going to need each of the request forms from the different churches. And maybe the simplest way of us doing this, I think, is to go through each congregational one rather than anything else. So as Dwayne said at the top there, Duchess Lutheran Church, under strategic mission alignment, it does have direct support of word and sacrament ministry, so it should be weighted number 4. in terms of its proximity to other Lutheran Church Canada congregations, that's not something that's in the report. So we need our regional pastor to help us out there because he's got that map in his mind. It's burned in there. I know.
As
Good.
as the lay delegate for that, I can also speak to that. They're about
Yeah,
100 kilometers away.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks, Tyler.
yeah,
So then they also get a four, would get a 4 rating there.
correct.
Okay. And then as far as worship attendance goes, I invite you, those who are skimming through it as soon as you see
It
a,
would be a 0. They're less than 20.
okay. All right. They're less than 20. Under viability, their offerings are their 30,000 is their total anticipated. Is that right?
Yeah. So that would be a 0. It's less than 50.
It's also 0. Okay, and then long-term sustainability, they're requesting
5. It would be a
5.
4. It would be a 4.
So that's a 4. Okay, so they get the total there is then is 12. And then we can move on to Mount Carmel in Grand
Before
Cap.
we move on, I have
Okay,
a comment.
sure.
I have a lot of trouble with this because their offerings are less than 50,000. They're a 0. When you only have 12 or 13 people coming each week, they're doing okay in terms of the commitment of the individual congregation or individual members. And I don't think that should be rated that way. It doesn't reflect the commitment that the individual members have to the ministry.
Well, and I think that this is part of the narrative information or was it qualitative information that's helpful for us to take into account too, Terry. So thanks for that. Do you have a suggestion if we were going to, or Dwayne, is it okay if we bring that into it and then make an adjustment?
Well, if we could go through them all, like I said, and then get the feedback at the end. I mean, these are things you can certainly forward to us in advance of the conference, so that group would be discussing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So
Yeah,
okay.
you could, because we really haven't put a weighting on the qualitative side yet either, right? The
No.
qualitative. I mean, that could be things that could be mentioned there. Yeah, the key priority, and hey, by the way, they didn't hit the local offerings, but the commitment per member is this much, so that could be taken into account.
Mhm.
Could
Okay.
be maybe be addressed that way.
So that's a narrative that
Or
will be
qualitative.
included in that. Yeah.
Terry, one other question?
I don't know whether this is the appropriate time, but when we have questions on the actual submission, where do we put them in? My question would be, they have an anticipated shortfall of $9,880, and they're only requesting a subsidy of $5,000. And so, where's the rest coming from? It makes me think: are they thinking that this is a one of the small grants that they're asking for because we have a $5,000 limit on it? Are they understanding the application process?
I guess if I was to look at that, Mr. Chairman, if I could address it, I did put a financial profile in for Duchess. It's
Yeah.
on 10, 10,
6.
6. And this was derived from their charitable return.
Mhm.
So it looks at the end of 20. Did everybody find it?
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
would say that they have $12,000 in their bank account that they're probably going to use to help cover some of that. And then they've also identified long-term investments of 71 grand. I don't know whether that's just how it's showing on their charitable return.
Yeah.
So they might have money to draw down from.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's a good point. And thank you for adding those in there, because we're also we need to look at their balance their assets as well. And I've noted that many of the congregations do have investments of some sort, and also the same sort of situation in which they're not looking for fully funding their deficit. And we could assume that they're going to be using part of their investment funds and returns to subsidize the rest of the deficit.
Right. Yep. Okay. Let's carry on then with Mount Carmel. Strategic mission alignment. What do we have there? You guys can help me out here.
Uh, so
Or
Terry would be the one to answer probably the first two of those.
okay.
And so, yes, I would say 4.
Okay. And location.
Even a 5.
There's
They're
312.
a long ways from anybody.
Yeah.
Their pastor travels 2.5 hours to serve them.
Okay. All right. Their worship attendance is
4.5. I don't know how that would work. Average, I guess. About 5 people.
yeah. So we
0.
they're at a 0. And then the local offerings viability is
16.
No,
16.
right, we're using it would be a 0, but I disagree.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll come back to them. We're just doing we're just doing the straight math right now. All right. And then sustainability
It's a 4.
is a 4. Okay, so again 12. All right. And then let's move on to Trinity Deaf Congregation next. And that's again they also it's a 4 for Word and Sacrament ministry. In terms of how do you do this one for location when it's like language ministry, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether we even have another language ministry in Canada, do we?
Another deaf one?
Deaf
Yeah,
one in
Edmonton.
Edmonton. So
There's
it
still a
would be
small group in Edmonton.
so it'd
And-
be
Yeah, and actually, the ministry here actually does do some support of the Edmonton ministry. They do have conversations, so and sometimes supportive resources. So
We would call this a 4 then.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Their vitality or number of members is
less than 20, I think,
less
isn't
than
it?
20.
Oh no, it's
yeah.
it's less than 20 a month or 20 a week.
Okay, so 0. And its local offerings are 37,000. Is that right?
Yeah, so it'd be a 0.
Yeah. And
Well, that's it's 20 grand actually.
Oh yeah, it's 1.
okay. Yes.
So the only thing I would caution on this one when it comes to they do have quite a bit of money set aside right now. I don't know whether they're looking at doing anything. It's on
Yeah.
10950.
Yeah, they have 283,000 something.
It's 357,000 because they just got some sage.
Okay.
So that
Right.
would be something to consider on the
Yeah.
amount, maybe. Not saying you couldn't give the amount, but
No,
that should be in the qualitative analysis.
yeah,
I
that
think.
should be in the qualitative
Yeah.
analysis. And that may also be in terms of recommending, um, how much should a congregation be expected to take out of their investments in order to supply? I don't think there's a hard and fast rule on that, but some directions of an expectation that they should be using some of their investment resources, to subsidize. And I would think, again, this is a good case here where you have, they're not, the amount that they're asking for is less than what they need. And I suspect that they're already drawing on their investment resources in order to balance the budget at the end of the day.
Terry.
And so a quantitative way of looking at that is to say, how much interest are they able to generate? Even on our application forms, we should be asking them, what do they have for investments, and what from the income from investments, what can they use for their ministry? That's a picture we need to have.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering there when they talk about no way to know for sure, and I have no argument for asking that, but if you look at their application, they're saying their total anticipated receipts are 37,420, but they're saying their total offerings are only 20,000. So it looks like they're already factoring in some interest from some income from other areas.
But we need to know that.
Yeah, we're supposing it. We should have some facts on it. Yeah.
The data is available on Cherry Data website. I can give it to you right now. Just pulling it up. But I guess the most recent is 2023 on here, so it's not completely accurate.
Yeah. Don't blame the congregations for that. The CRA the Charities Directorate is way behind on uploading those things right now.
Okay. All right. So back to this, then we just have sustainability to do. That's the assistance requested. And that would be a 2. Is that correct?
They're asking for 15,000. So that would be, it's less than 20. Yep.
So
yeah, it's a 2. Yep.
All right. So there's at this point gets an 11. Or 3, 7, 4. Yeah, well.
I have 10. I have 4, 4,
well,
0.
I'm going to go with you because you are the man who does these things, and I didn't do very well in math in school.
Yeah.
4,
so I stand corrected.
10.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So then we're moving on to Faith Surrey. And their request is for 2 ethnic ministries, but it's bunched together as the one. First of all, their strategic mission alignment. That's a 4, is it? Yeah.
It would be because of their cultural that falls within our strategic planning.
Okay, good.
Ministries, yeah.
And in terms of location, proximity,
I think that's a 0. There's lots of other congregations, but
I
But
guess
there's not other Alphon or Romo or Hispanic congregations, though.
yeah,
That would be the argument, I would say.
yeah. If we had another Hispanic ministry going on with another pastor, then you could make that point. But
it's like the deaf one too. I mean,
it's like the deaf one. Yeah, if the deaf one gets a 4, I would say that those ones should get a 4 as well.
Right. All right. And in terms of its worship attendance, you're pretty
well. I was just looking at Oromo. They say they have 65 people in worship.
Yeah.
I don't know what, it didn't say anything on the Hispanic, but I mean, obviously the congregation has 130.
Hispanic is around, I mean, just from when I was there, I would say around a dozen or so. Physically there, and they have more online, but I don't think we're counting those kinds of factors.
No.
It looks like they get a 4 for worship attendance just based on whether you count the English district or you count the English congregation. But I was just reading their notes, and they said they have 65 people attending Aroma on a
Correct.
regular.
Okay. Okay, we'll go with the 4 then. Viability, local offerings.
Well, if I've looked at the congregation would be a 4. You look at if you look at the ministries, I'm looking at it's 11, it's Surrey 5, I guess. You can find that page.
Right.
You see it there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scrolling down through it. Yeah.
And I was kind of looking at what they're actually expecting, and from Hispanic offerings, they're expecting 6870, and from Aroma 8340. They have higher budget amounts, but it looks like the district is the English congregation is covering the shortfall.
That's correct. Yeah, that would be the case.
Okay.
Is that reasonable for 65 people in that community? Like offerings of 8340.
It's hard to say. Some of them are depends what they're doing for work.
Yeah.
Lots of them are first generation, so they're not necessarily with the high paying jobs. I know there's at least a couple of professionals in the congregation, but I don't think most of them are.
The other reality is the attendance levels that you have. The Aromos in particular tend to have lots of kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they said 25 were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
a good point.
So
then
that,
I guess that local offerings would be, guess you would give that a 0.
I would actually give it a 1.
A 1?
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
Well, I guess I'm counting also the monies of the English district or the English congregation into that. That's how I looked at it from that perspective, is that I don't think you want to discount what the local English congregation is doing there. That should be recognized.
there's a cooperation there between those 3 congregations, or the one with the other 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That would be my rationale, but I get it. If we're just looking in
Big
isolation,
numbers here.
then
Would that maybe come in more under the qualitative analysis, Pastor Mons?
yeah, that we could add that into that.
Yeah. Okay.
Just for the sake of simplifying the use of the matrix.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So we should maybe keep it as a 0, but keep that
Yeah.
in the back of our heads for the qualitative analysis.
Okay.
Right.
Good. And then finally, the requests, assistance requests.
Yeah, it's for 35 in the aggregate, so
Yeah. Okay, so that's
a 0.
a 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 3 4s and 2 0s.
Mm-hmm.
Get you into that
Okay.
12.
All right, then let's go from there to our last request, which is Kitimat. Do we get a 4 for the first for strategic mission alignment?
Yeah.
Location is, I'm thinking a 4.
Yeah.
Most isolated congregations in Synod, I think, except maybe those on the East Coast. All right. And their worship attendance.
Yeah. It's going to be a 0.
Yeah. Okay. And their viability, their local offerings, 63. So we're looking
At a 1.
at a 1.
2. Is it 2?
Is it a, yeah, I think it
2.
Yeah.
2. Okay. And finally, then sustainability. Their request is
28.
8.
So it'd be a 1.
It's a 1. Okay. That gets us our that gives us our matrix completed. So the priorities there. Now, is our next thing then to talk about give the qualitative, have some qualitative discussion, or how do we go about our next step?
Yeah. Well, you've done some of it already, like you've linked it to the mission alignment, but you could, some of the comments that came out about offerings per member, you might want to talk about.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it isn't, I guess, other things I would think about in Kitimat, that there's opportunity for outreach there too with the, but you got all the, you know better than I do, some of the indigenous communities there's been talk, so.
Yeah.
That location is likely going to be playing a significant role in our First Nations Indigenous outreach plan.
So that should be noted.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's hard to do mission outreach without a pastor on site. As we're finding with BC Mission Boat, right? So
right.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think coming back to Terry's points on Duchess and Mount Carmel, just noting that in this case the consideration is also in terms of giving per communicant member, and even though the number value is 0 in those, consideration should be given to that. They are faithful giving members of the congregation. There's a small number of them, so their aggregate number in terms of offerings doesn't fit into the matrix so well.
Okay. So in terms of how we reflect that, I guess, Wayne, we've raised our voice on it, and you'll decide how that works out. Is that correct?
Well, the group will. I think we'll look at some of this qualitative analysis, and it'll be taken into consideration for sure.
Okay, when you have the meeting in October.
Yeah.
That's the starting point, just to allocate everything. And will this qualitative analysis move them up?
Yeah.
It's just one tool.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay, so then are there any other comments anybody wants to make in terms of qualitative matters with these?
I think for some of them, qualitatively, like Trinity Deaf, the uniqueness of that ministry, of deaf ministry, which is so needed, and so often those people are neglected, and so I think it's a vital ministry to try to sustain and grow. I would argue the same thing for Faith Surrey and Kitimat in terms of their uniqueness in their desire and ability to reach out to those communities. You might have other congregations with a desire, but perhaps they don't have the other pieces in place to actually do that effectively, and these places do. Right? They have Faith Surrey there's an Afon Oromo missionary at large. They have a Hispanic speaking pastor as well, and then Kitimat has a pastor who has already built some connections and is working on building more connections with First Nations communities, and is ideally situated to also work with partner organizations like LEN. So I think those things need to be kept in perspective when we're looking at those.
Well, if we do it crassly in terms of dollar investment per mission work, those are the areas that we have the greatest. It seems like we have the greatest opportunities for mission work to happen in those particular areas.
And then for the other two, Dutchess and Mount Carmel, in looking at that, from my perspective as the missions director, and looking at, these are congregations who are, I think they're showing really good stewardship of the limited resources they have, and yet they have a very strong desire and will to sustain their word and sacrament ministry, and both reports or requests that they submitted also indicated a hope that this would lead to outreach in the community. Now, maybe there's more that can be worked on there, but they are at least looking in that way. And the fact of the matter is, they're requesting $5,000 or less.
Yeah.
And I think if we look at Synod and say $5,000 investment to maintain word and sacrament ministry in a remote community for a year, that's a pretty darn good trade-off. Like, I think that's good value for our money.
Just a little bit of the story of Mount Carmel there. We've been up there a number of times, and they are outreach orientated. They actually take people out from the community and take them out for lunch on a Sunday, and build community with them. So they're very outreach orientated, and they're optimistic about the Grand Cache. There is just 100% resource-based community, and so as the resource goes, so goes the community. And there has been talk about expanding some of the work there, and they're anxiously seeing if there's going to be more population moving in, and giving them opportunities to connect with people and the new people in the community as well. So Dutchess is the same way. They continue to reach out in the community, and their prayer and their work has been very much outreach orientated. Though we don't see the numbers, the numbers there, it's a limited sort of thing. But they are hard at work.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Okay, that's very helpful.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
please.
I have to admit right up front, I'm really, really, really struggling with this. I know the necessity. I understand that. I have realized we can't do everything. There's a part of me that is really struggling with the idea of everything boiling down to some sort of a numeric approach and mathematical evaluation of things, especially when it is so hard to know exactly what is happening in those congregations themselves. Now, Jacob has had some opportunity. Rob, you've had some opportunity to visit with them. It is possible that our circuit counselors probably have. But think of all the unique difficulties we have. You talk about the stewardship of a congregation, but the stewardship of a congregation like the one I served is very, very different, because you've got all these professionals who should have lots of money to give to their church versus those who are in some cases working at very low level jobs. Some are not, and I recognize that too. You talked about the fact that one of the things that people do for community is that they seek to take those people out to lunch. So they're not giving to the church. Oh, wait a minute, they are, because they're buying lunch for somebody. That's a different way of doing some of those things. And as we're going through this quantitative stuff, I don't know. I don't feel personally I know enough about the unique situations in the congregations. And I appreciate the wisdom that is coming from those that do. But man, this is a struggle. And I got to say it. I'm sorry.
No, thanks, David. Remember, and Dwayne said it a few times, we're giving feedback here, so
I know. Well,
it's okay.
And I apologize for the video. I don't know why it's not working tonight. I mean, I even got out of my tracksuit so that I could look half presentable. And then now I'm wondering why I'm not sitting in my tracksuit. So,
well, it's our loss, David.
Well, no, I wouldn't go that far.
I think Pastor Bodie's comments are well stated in many ways, but I think we also have to keep in mind that this is just one part of the puzzle. Like Dwayne mentioned before too, like that whole qualitative piece does matter. And I think that's why it is hard for the RMMC, at least some of the members, to be able to know what's going on specifically in each and every congregation. But that's why we're blessed with, Pastor Mons and our circuit counselors and other representatives on this committee who do know that, and that's why they're able to then share that qualitative story, if you will, of these situations and help paint us a more full picture of what's going on there, so we can make better informed decisions. But at the same time, there's also some quantitative stuff that I think this matrix, whether it stays in this format or not, it can be a useful tool. But we have to remember that is all it is. It is a tool, and so we're we know we're dealing, in the end of the day, we're dealing with flesh and blood people, people who have been created and redeemed by our Lord Jesus Christ, and they have a living soul, and that's ultimately what we keep in perspective, for sure.
Thank you. And Jan, you had a comment. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just, I guess, to piggyback on Pastor Bodie's comment, maybe it's a mental note for all of us with the regional conference coming up that we can reach out to some of these clergy people who will be there and talk to them about what's happening in their parishes and get a better sense as well.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you everybody for your comments and also your help with math for me. And I think this gives us our first run through with it. And if it's okay with you, I think I'd like to suggest we move on to the second item on our agenda, which I've got buried underneath all my papers here now. So I'm still trying to dig it out. There it is. Which I guess, yeah, it's our committee reports there. And so what we'd like to do is those who represent one of the subgroups, if you could just give a very brief some brief comments to that we can then relay on as well to the working group as we go forward. So let's start with equipping leadership. And okay, Sonia, have you got any sound for us now? No. Okay. Well, the good news is that Sonia is also our secretary, and so she will have no trouble writing a summary of her subgroup's work. In fact, a bit of it is already in here. Sonia, did you have questions that you wanted to put to the group that you'd like to include in a chat? No. Okay. All right. Then we'll move on from you. Thank you. to the finance and stewardship group. You've got some items that are listed there. Charles and Deanna, do you have any comments that you'd like to share?
Okay, yeah. Deanna and maybe Terry, you can help me. I thought we had put together some sort of reporting system. If we did not, it has not been done.
Okay. Okay. Anything else there from Deanna or Terry?
It was my memory that we completed the work that was assigned to us. So I'm wondering about this report and what it is.
And where it is.
Yeah.
Sonia tells us that nothing has come through to her, so. Okay, Dean.
So maybe that's the reporting that we want back from the various groups that are making applications, whether that is in mission subsidy funding or in the small grant applications as well. Is that what we're talking about here in specific?
Yes, I think that's the way I understand it.
Okay.
I thought we put something together.
Okay.
I have no idea where it went or what's happened to it.
Deanna?
Okay, Deanna?
Yeah, I mean, at the last meeting, that's precisely what we talked about was what is the procedure for follow-up? And there seemed previous to that meeting to be no follow-up that we knew about. Now, that's not to say that, for instance, that Pastor Mons was not speaking to them and getting feedback for sure, but we didn't know what was happening. The applications would go out, the money would be sent out, but from our end here at the West Region, we didn't know what was happening. So it was just put together that after 5 months, they should be sending a report. And somehow I think what we don't have is who sees that report. Does it just simply go into Synod office? And do they see reports? Dwayne, maybe you know better about that, like whether the Synod office actually sees reports from people who have been receiving financial assistance. I think the follow-up piece was what we talked about at the last meeting, and it's very important. I mean, for many reasons, but I think it's important for the people receiving the grant money to understand that we are walking alongside with them in this work. And if we don't care to look at this report and see what they've been doing, they don't have any sense then of how we are walking with them through that endeavor. So I thought we actually just said, this is what has to happen 5 months after we expect a report. But did we put in place a mechanism for getting that report? Who gets it? That would be my question.
So the groundwork on that still needs to be determined. The procedure, not just the form, but who sends it out, who collects it, how is it reported back to RMMC? Those are the kind of fundamental questions that need to be determined. And again, if we're are we, and the role of the Synod in that, are we going to have a request that the data is sent to the synodical office, and or are we going to manage those requests through the servant leader network and create a data gathering of those of those reports that can be viewed by members of the RMMC directly. Those would be some of the questions that we need to clarify.
Is this, can I just ask for clarification? Because Deanna had asked me a question. Is this congregations that are getting assistance or new ministries, and you're asking for a report back on measuring input or output or whatever, the impact of the help and what they're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dwayne, do you know if do the forms right now? We should know, but I'm taking that we don't necessarily are familiar with the forms that go out to the congregations. Do we have an awareness of what's on that form that would trigger them to say, okay, it's 5 months, we need to send a report in to somebody somewhere?
No, we haven't. Our involvement is basically being to send out the early letter for congregations asking if there's any opportunities or if they're going to apply for subsidy. We haven't initiated any follow-up. I mean, we could certainly, if the RMMC's designed something that they would like to see come back, and we could certainly help, we could certainly distribute it and compile it. I think that would be great. If you've already done some work on it. But who's been sending it now, or who did it get sent to? Did it just come in as part of the minutes from the RMMC to go on our agenda?
We haven't, I don't think we've gotten the plane off the ground yet.
Okay.
We've built it, but we haven't got the gas.
Okay.
There are a couple of congregations, ministries in the East region that do send mid-year reports. They're mainly financial in nature. It's not overly exciting. Reading doesn't tell a great deal of the story, but I think that's a really interesting idea to have some sort of a simple report sent back. I could certainly include financial information, but I think in addition to that, what might be helpful to the RMMCs and indeed to the Synod as a whole would be to have just a brief story or account of how this support is being a blessing to that congregation, to that ministry. I think especially as we go forward with this Together One vision, those stories are going to be absolutely key for Synod and for supporters of this Together One vision, right? Look at the impact these things are having among your brothers and sisters in Christ. And so the more stories that we can gather and know about and share broadly as Synod, but also for you and the RMMCs among your own local congregations, your own circuits, those kinds of things, I think could be very, very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Sonia, you're right. It helps when we're looking at a 4-year plan as well. Sonia's absolutely correct.
Yeah. So is that something that we would put or bring to the larger conversation then for development in that, or is it the desire of the RMMC that in our conversation, since we've already originated with this, to move forward with at least putting something together that could be presented as and put forward to the larger group as a starting place?
I think this falls actually, I think that would be great if you've done some groundwork and could pass it on. I think Pastor Quast, not to put you on the spot, but I think this falls under your purview because you're the one that knows domestic missions across the country, and you should be getting those reports and disseminating that information out to the RMMCs, I think. I mean, obviously you're going to, whether you work through the RMMCs, compiling that data.
At the spring meeting we had, I thought when this kind of issue came up, I thought we had discussed how it would be good for the information to come from the ground up, in a sense, like it would come through the congregations would make those reports to their circuit counselors, the circuit counselors would pass it on to the RMMC, but then also obviously, Pastor Mons, myself, we would have CC'd in on those reports as well. But
Charlie,
yeah,
do you
it's hand to hand, face to face.
Yeah, Terry, do you recall putting? I think you did it for the project applications, right? And maybe I could just come back to Samantha, because you did one of the youth events at I think you followed up really in great detail with the story of what happened there. So I think it's within the small project grants that we requested a story to come back to us.
That's right. I'd forgotten that, but I think that's where we did go ahead with it.
Yeah, so it may not have been in the missions subsidy area. On the project one, I think the dollar amount is important to know what was budgeted and then what was spent for reference. But I think in the mission application ones, we know that the money will be distributed on a regular basis. So the financial thing is not really so much of an issue. It's the story, it's what's happening in those congregations.
Okay. I'm on the communications subgroup. Is this something that ought to be under that heading?
Does communications want to take that up?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
It's either communications or finance.
Yeah.
Which of you want to take that on?
Communications will take it on.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, communications.
Yeah, it's probably best if it be that. All right, good. Let's move on. Youth, young adults, and family ministry. Michelle, you're in that gang?
Yeah, and Pastor Andrew's here too, so if I forget anything, he can jump in. But at our last in-person meeting, we did not yet know who the ADFM was going to be. And so we kind of tabled any major plans until we knew who that person was going to be and what kind of support they might need. So that'll be something that we'll need to look at more now that we know it's Samantha. But also the Impact Youth Gathering, the regional youth gathering is at the end of June, and registration packages have gone out, and all of the pastors here anyway should have gotten an email, I think, with the registration package, or the church office would have gotten it. So yeah, we've gone back to the same camp because we had such a good response last time, and we're hoping that will generate some more excitement and make it easier to invite new people. You say, well, I've been there before. I know we like it. We're going to go back there again. So we'll see how that works. It's like completely breaking all the traditions of youth gatherings, so back to the same place twice in a row. So we'll see how it works.
Michelle, is there a financial application coming forward for support for that, or does that? I can't remember how that's funded.
It has been self-funded until this point. We actually have a committee meeting on Monday night where we're going to look at the budget. And the costs may be higher than we'd anticipated when we set the registration amount, and we've always kind of subsidized it a little bit to make it more affordable. So there is a possibility that we may be asking for at least a bit of backstop funding just in case we run out of our nest egg. But that's for Monday night's meeting.
Okay, so that would be something now that you work out with Samantha in terms of youth ministry and youth ministry budget stuff. That'll be a new dimension. If I'm understanding that correctly. And that would also be, I guess, with any of the youth, like spring youth or young adult gatherings, would work with Samantha in terms of budgeting for that out of that pot of money there. If I'm understanding that, that's transferred to a different. It would still, the RMMCs, at least locally, are our subgroups or the groups that are holding that would work in conjunction with Samantha, I believe, on that, if I have that right. But those are conversations, I think, between our youth and young adult family ministry, RMMCs, and Samantha to work through what's going to happen there.
Yeah, it should be funneled up through Samantha. That would be the right protocol.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Okay, thank you. Acts of mercy, or acts, that is acts of mercy rather than and mercy, right? Missions and outreach subgroup. We have representation for that group here.
I think, Rick, you're on that group.
Yeah, there you go. So I missed the in-person meeting in May. I was seating. I don't know why I was seating, because we didn't get any rain this year. So we've got half a crop, and I'm by myself taking the crop off as well. So it's been, I've got to get better at doing this. I'm retiring at the end of next year. So at that particular moment in time, I will be able to do more work on all this stuff as well. Sorry, guys. It's just, it's been a tough year.
Yeah.
Agricultural disaster announced in July, and I haven't seen that many grasshoppers since I read some of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Rick, who else is on your committee? I just can't remember.
Well, Tyler joined us last time. I'm not sure. Hey, Tyler, did you chair the meeting in May, or did you get there?
I wasn't there either. So
Okay.
I think we've just been non-engaged.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, there were things out of our control for that. So, but thanks, guys. And then finally, communication and convocation. As Rob mentioned, our circuit, Vancouver Island, is planning for a circuit convocation November 22nd. That Jacob is coming to present on domestic missions. We're looking forward to that. We are going to record his presentations, and we want to make those available to the rest of the circuits of the region, so that if they wish to use that as a presentation for their circuit, or it could be in a congregation, but we'd like to make that available for that. So we're within the circuit, we're preparing for that. And then we also had, through communication, we also had we were tasked with preparing a overture for convention that provides for the choice of representatives to attend RMMC meetings when when one of the council members is not able to make a meeting. And so David Bodie put this together. David, did you have a chance to post this to the Servant Leader Network?
Yes, I did. It was up but it was late last night when it went up.
Okay. Okay. So I don't know. Put your hand up if you've seen it. Okay. There's two of us, so we're not going to discuss, or if there's three, okay. Excellent. But please take time to look it over, and if you have comments for us, pass it on. But David, thank you for your work on it. In my view, it looks like it's ready to go. So thanks for that. So that's really it for our report at this time. Was there another overture that we?
There was an overture again for pastoral wellness or worker wellness, and that Michelle had worked, I think,
Right.
together with a group to put some flesh onto that idea, and it was posted onto the servant leader network there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to make a change now that Pastor Jan shared that document from the LCMS that already has a whole framework. It's going to make the overture much simpler to just say the LCMS already has this process. Let's adopt it for use in Canada. It's going to make the whole overture a lot more accessible, and I think gives it a higher chance of actually being passed. So now that I've got my hands on that, I'll make those updates and repost it next week.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle. That's good. Good. All right.
Dwayne.
Yeah, would I be able to get a copy of that proposed overture? Just so I sort of.
Yeah, I have to send it to Nancy and Iris once I've updated it, so I can include you on that too.
You send it to Nancy Swearhan?
Yeah, she and I've already been talking about it.
Okay,
Because
okay,
it aligns
that's
with
good.
some of the things she's working on. Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. Thank
But
you.
I can loop you into this totally fine. Yeah.
Good. All right. I think we've come to the end of our work plan for this evening. Are there any other comments? Yes, Jacob?
We're running out of time, so I was been thinking about giving just a brief synopsis of domestic mission work, not just for the West region, but for across the whole Synod, so you guys can kind of have a better sense of what's going on. But rather than do that, what I would like to do is just to highlight something I was blessed to participate in this last summer, since last we met, which was a trip with the BC Mission Boat Society to Clemtu First Nation. And what a blessed opportunity it was. And I'm so grateful to have been able to go on that, and especially to Sonia and so many others, the team and the support there. And the reason why I want to share this with you is just to leave you with a word of encouragement this evening. Is when we were there were 7 of us, 2 of whom were under the age of 3. Who actually ended up probably being the best at outreach to people in the community. So that's a kind of a neat tip for you. But in the span of 5 days, our team met with practically 1/4 to 1/3 of the entire population of that community, almost 100 people. We met with in 5 days, had some sort of contact with them. And overwhelmed by the support and the warmth and the welcome of the people of that community. And particularly, I want to share with you, I asked everybody I came into contact with a question: what or would you be open to having more pastoral care and support in this community? Everyone said yes. Everyone, whether they were Christian or not. And I even asked a hereditary chief. I asked a band manager, the council band manager, asked all sorts of people, and everybody said yes. Then I asked a follow-up question: what does that look like to you? Or what do you think that means? And there was more variation response there. But still, an overwhelming majority of people responded with something of the fact basically relating to grief counseling, grief care. And the reason why I bring this up is because this kind of care, spiritual care and support, is right up our alley, particularly as confessional Lutherans who have a great distinction of law and gospel and can articulate the gospel so very clearly to people who are suffering in this way, and presenting Jesus as the hope and the answer when the road is dark, right? Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And so I just wanted to share that encouragement with you. We have a great opportunity here in LCC, partnering with BC Mission Boat Society, LAMP, and other organizations to really reach out to our First Nations communities. You know, it's a key priority for our mission outreach. And so there's a lot of groundwork that's been laid already. God be praised. And it seems like the Holy Spirit is presenting us with wonderful opportunities. And I pray that this work will continue and grow and expand. There's things in the works to try to do just that. So I want to leave that with some encouragement, and to keep BC Mission Boat and LAMP and those other organizations in your prayers, all those people who volunteer and do such good work in sharing the gospel of Christ with people in our Northwest Coast and beyond. So very cool.
Mm-hmm. And
right, Sonia, consider serving the BC Mission Boat this
that's
summer.
Great. That's
nice
great.
plug. Well done.
Mm-hmm. And Jacob, sorry we didn't give you more time this evening, but thank you very much for that insight and word of encouragement. Would you mind being the man who offers the closing prayer tonight, and as you've encouraged us to be praying for our First Nations outreach?
Fraser, before we do that, I'm just wondering about meeting again, future meetings. We know coming after post October 15th, 16th, that we may not be able to set a date for that yet, but just to be aware that we will need a meeting somewhere post October 15, 16, and prior to January. Okay. So somewhere in that time frame, we'll need to come back together.
So will the executive then come up with a suggested time, and we'll get that out and get consensus on it?
Yeah. Okay. We may need to do more work in terms of looking at the other areas of ministry to input into the larger conversation of initiatives as well. Or we may need to, I said we wouldn't meet in the spring, but maybe we actually do need to have a meeting in the spring just to cover that whole area. And so, sorry.
You still got us all until
we're gonna keep you going right to the very end.
That's fine. That's fine. David, you have your hand up.
Well, I think since we made poor Samantha come and do something like this tonight, we should at least find out if she wants to say anything too.
Hear, hear.
I don't need to say anything. Everyone can go to sleep. I'm just, happy to work with you in whatever capacity that looks like. And thanks for having me here. This is my first RMMC, so I'm learning the process with you guys. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So we should pray for you more now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Sounds good.
Especially since she had to spend 14 hours in a car with me over the last 3 days.
That's automatic sainthood.
All right.
Boy, I must be way up there. I don't know how many hours I spent in the car with Breeze in this last year and a half. It's been a blessing every second of it.
It's an initiation.
All right. Jan has had to leave us. Before anybody else has to, Brother Q, would you please lead us in prayer?
Yes. And yeah, just one last thing. David, Pastor Bodie reminded me of yet another beautiful situation was the ordination and installation of Joseph Neal in Calgary as a Sudanese pastor, newer speaking. And that was a great joy and privilege to be a part of that. And Pastor Mons and Pastor Bodie and Deanna can attest to that as well. What a blessed event. So thanks be to God. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, our Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to you for this time to come together and discuss these important matters of your church. We thank you for everyone who was able to attend our meeting this evening and those who are unable to attend, but for the prayers and the support that every person on this committee offers and their steadfast dedication for the work of your holy church. We thank you for each and every one of them. We ask for your strength, for your wisdom, for your clarity of mind as we continue to move forward through these processes and try to create new ways of reaching the lost with your saving gospel, and ways of supporting your word and sacrament ministry in congregations all across our nation. We know what a privilege and honor it is to be members of your holy church, the members of the body of Christ. And we thank you for gathering us together in synod as Lutheran Church Canada, as brothers and sisters who have the same confession of faith and the great desire and joy to proclaim Jesus to those around us. As we prepare for our future meetings, we ask that you would be with us and help the work of each of the subcommittees. And we also pray, O Lord, that you would bless our rest this evening, that we would be watched over by your holy angels, and that we would be able to receive a good night's rest and return to our work and our labor in the morning refreshed and renewed and rejoicing in your many gifts and blessings. We ask these things in the name of Jesus, our risen Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. All right. God's peace be with you all.
Thank you.
And with your spirit, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. God bless.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.